Have a seat. Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Pro Tempore and members of the Senate, the Dean and members of the Cabinet, the Doyen and members of the Diplomatic Corps, Bishop, Prelates, members of the clergy, chiefs and traditional leaders, political and business leaders, officials of government, Ambassador Joseph Boaka, former Vice President, the chairman and members of the Independent National Dialogue Secretariat, the leadership and representatives of our support partner for the National Economic Dialogue, namely the Undp, USAID, the European Union, and ECOWAS. Distinguished panelists, moderators, special guests, marketeers, members of the Fourth Estate, my fellow citizens, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here this morning at the opening ceremonies of the first Liberia Economic Dialogue Conference. The conference is organized and convened as an important initiative of my administration in order to stimulate a broad-based conversation among all stakeholders within the Liberian economy concerning the best and most feasible way forward to sustain growth and development. You may recall that in my first annual message, which was given 1 week after I assumed the presidency in January last year, I informed the nation that the state of economy that my administration had inherited left a lot to be desired. There were structural challenges which will require major adjustment if they were not to continue to have a negative impact on macroeconomic stability. There were also issues of liquidity and the persistent decline in the value of our currency, compounded by reducing inflows of foreign exchange and investment, all of which place upward pressure on inflation. In the 18 months since my incumbency, we have exercised our best effort as a government to address these issues. Yet, many of them persist and continue to present challenges. I am not an economist. I would never pretend to be one. Yet, the mantle of leadership that has been placed upon me gives me direct responsibility to find lasting solutions to repair our broken economy and make life better for our people. You'll recall that in an address which I gave to the nation in May this year, I said that we Liberians should work together in our attempts to tackle our toughest problems and seek to make the choices that will lead to changes that have brought positive effects. Again, in June this year, in another address to the nation, I said that my government does not have a monopoly on ideas and acknowledge that it will take the collective effort of all Liberians to achieve the desired objective of reviving the economy and placing the country on the path of sustainable development and transformation. I therefore urge all Liberians to work with our administration to devise and support new measures which could successfully address the structural defects and imbalances in our economy. And I then call for discussion and dialogue on the way forward for economic revival in Liberia. This is the genesis of this National Economic Dialogue Conference. Given our deep concern for the current state of the Liberian economy and our appreciation of the urgent need to take corrective actions in the short, medium, and long term, we established an independent National Dialogue Secretariat. We gave them the mandate to create this consultative forum where the best and the brightest minds, both Liberian and international, can be made to focus on analysis and diagnosis of our economic problems and develop prescription, policies, and programs that should take our economy forward and upward to growth and prosperity for all. We are highly impressed by the caliber of various panelists, both Liberian and foreign, and the depth and range of their experience and knowledge in their respective field, all of which it is expected that they will bring to bear in searching for lasting solution to our economic problems. On behalf of the people of Liberia and in my own name, I want to express our sincere thanks and appreciation to each and every one of you for taking the time to assist our country with your expertise. We are also very grateful for the support and assistance of our international and development partners in making this event a reality. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, the theme of the dialogue is National Economic Revival and Growth, Critical Issues, Challenges, and the Way Forward. I am convinced that your founding and recommendation will support and enhance the attainment of the goals and objectives of our National Development Plan, the proper agenda for prosperity and development. Let me assure you, as President, that my administration will take your recommendations on a serious advancement, and where and when necessary, will back them with the political will required for successful implementation. I now hereby declare this National Economic Dialogue Conference open for business. I wish you success in your deliberations and look forward to receiving your views, your conclusions, and your recommendations at the end of this conference. God bless you, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. At this time, it is my honor to invite Parliament PA, resident representative of the United Nations Development Program, for goodwill message.
is always difficult to speak after such a comprehensive deliberation by the President, but I'll speak on the angle of partners. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Liberia, Dr. George Mani Weah, the Speaker of the House of Representatives and members here, the Senate Pro Tem and members of this Honorable Senate, the Finance Minister, CBL Governor, the Chairperson, Dialogue Secretariat, traditional leaders, the former Vice President Joseph Boakai, Acting Dean and members of the Cabinet, and other government officials here, the Doyen and members of the Diplomatic Corps, heads of UN agencies and international organizations, other development partners, the private sector representatives, youth representatives, civil society representatives, panelists, moderators, and participants, the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I noticed the President named 4 of us. We happen to be the poster boy for the donors, but this speech is on behalf of all of us. We've spent endless weeks debating, advising, providing resources as necessary to make this successful. I will therefore crave your indulgence for me to list some of those who actively participate in making this event as it is now, we hope is successful. We, the development partners in Liberia, UNDP, USAID, EU, ECOWAS, Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Sweden, Ireland, France, United Kingdom, South Africa, Sierra Leone, UN agencies, IMF, World Bank, AFDB, IFC, among many others, are honored to support this national economic dialogue. The dialogue, in our view, is a collective effort to revive the Liberian economy and achieve sustainable development by according Liberians of all persuasions the opportunity to discuss the path to economic recovery. In that effect, first, we should not underestimate the challenges, as the President said, the Liberian economy faces in terms of structural deficits and imbalances. These include inflation, unbalanced budget, and slow growth. Second, we should not be deterred by the magnitude of the challenges. This is why the National Economic Dialogue is crucial in better understanding the problems to proffer workable solutions. Third, as the President rightly said, we should collectively devise feasible strategies that will overcome Liberia's economic difficulties and collectively agree upon how those strategies will be implemented, by whom and within what time frame. The good news, however, is that there is a solid understanding of these problems, and none of the tasks involved is beyond our collective capacities. The Liberian government, citizens, development partners, and all other stakeholders have the experience, the expertise, and the programs for the various tasks in the recovery process. What we now need is to design strategies that are consistent with these capacities, diligently implement them, and regularly monitor progress. Anything less will lead to further slippages, which will erode confidence and trust in the economy. His Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, one of the major contributions of this dialogue should be to agree to establish a permanent monitoring mechanism which engages all segments of society to regularly affirm that the collective commitments to recovery and sustainable development are being met. In that connection, the performance management system with an accompanying citizens' feedback mechanism, which the President recently endorsed through a presidential order, becomes very relevant. We have no doubt, as partners in Liberia, that Liberia can and Liberia will recover rapidly if we all pull together. We will continue to work with the government in supporting Liberia's development agenda, as the President correctly said. In doing so, we will build on our support in developing government capacities by strengthening systems, policies, regulatory framework, and business development, livelihood, electoral support, and so on. These efforts are mainly designed to reach the furthest first and leave no one behind as we help the government meet its commitment to accelerate the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. This cannot be done without a vibrant, stable economy, which the economic dialogue is designed to promote. His Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we, the development partners, welcome the opportunity to contribute meaningfully to Liberia's recovery efforts. We therefore look forward to a successful dialogue, and thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Palami. With honor, I now invite the Central Bank of Liberia for an overview of the monetary situation in Liberia. The Central Bank.
His Excellency Dr. George Manawia, President of the Republic of Liberia, Chief Justice, and members of the judiciary, the Speaker, and members of the legislature, officials of government, traditional council, chiefs and elders, members of the diplomatic corps, and other foreign guests, our development partners, heads of academic and research institutions, the religious community, members of the Fourth Estate, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to be here this morning as part of this all-important occasion. As a member of the Economic Management Team, EMT, of Liberia, I have been asked to speak on the monetary situation in Liberia, which I'm glad to do. The timing of this occasion is relevant to the strengthening of policy in respect to the lingering microeconomic challenges we face as a country. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, given the link amongst macroeconomic indicators, kindly allow me to present brief macroeconomic overview on a pre-shock era, considering the period 2006 to 2013, and post-shock era, capturing the period from 2016 to 2019. The cause of the two periods, pre-shock and post-shock, is explained by Ebola and community. The Liberian economy recorded an average growth rate of 8% on an environment of relatively stable inflation and exchange rate from 2006 to 2013. Thanks to the huge international goodwill that stimulated capital inflows, there was massive external assistance, including unreal presence in the economy, with average annual inflow of about $500 million. Foreign exchange from 2003 to 2018, and increased donor inflows of more than $2 billion for capital and other investment over the period. These inflows largely explain the moderate pressure in the macroeconomic developments, translated into moderate inflationary pressures and low exchange rate volatility. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the price dynamics and output in Liberia have been more radically influenced by factors outside the control of monetary authorities, characterized by supply-side shocks, such as inadequate production of basic consumables, payments for fees and services in foreign currency, limited market asset and shortage facilities, high input cost, infrastructure deficit, and low inflow of donor support, donor fatigue. These situations, Your Excellency, have often constrained the overwhelming monetary policy for effectively and efficiently responding to the inflationary and exchange rate volatility. This is not to say that the story of the looming inflationary situation is totally non-monetary. Growth in broad money over the years has also been significant, partly explained by relative expansion in economic activity, expansionary fiscal policy, also explain part of the story. More sustained efforts have been slow in promoting economic activity in manufacturing and agriculture, as well as reducing the importation of basic commodities that the country can and has the capacity to produce. Productivity has been low in agriculture and manufacturing, reflecting less than 3% growth on average from 2006 to 2014. Economic activity remains significantly concentrated around the enclave sector, with limited linkages between the concession sectors and the downstream economic activity for the enhancement of value chain production and job creation. The vulnerabilities of the Liberian economy became evident by the drastic decline in economic activities as a result of the effects of Ebola health crisis and a global community price slump, and exacerbated by the departure of oil. From 2014 to 2016, investment and other economic activity was subdued, with economic growth recording a contraction from the seemingly impressive growth trajectory of 8% to negative 3.3%. The current pressure on the domestic currency is accentuated with the departure of oil and slow recovery in commodity prices, as well as slowdown in donor assistance. This situation has exacerbated the overall economy projections, which grew by an estimated 1.2% in 2018 from a revised growth of 3.2%, and is expected to further slump, like I said earlier, to 0.4% in a year, partly explained by the lukewarm policy response to address the hitting pre-Ebola vulnerabilities. Today, inflationary pressure heightened. Some say to 30%, some say 35%. Those figures are all questionable, which we are examining at the Central Bank of Liberia. While the volatility of exchange rate is rapidly increasing, being the highest in a sub-region adversely contributing to the increased socio-economic challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, the exchange rate dynamics has emerged as the most predictable drivers of prices in several developing countries, not only in Liberia, in developing countries and developed countries. Developing countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Guinea, Sierra Leone, to name a few. Kindly permit me to highlight below some of the key drivers of exchange rate depreciation in Liberia. 1, the growing demand for foreign exchange to facilitate inputs. The demand for foreign exchange as a proxy for total amount needed to facilitate input payments for the first half of 2019 was $525.2 million US dollar. Input value CIF for first half 2019, of which only 16.91 million, 3.2%, was met through the central bank intervention. The remaining was acquired from parallel market, thereby causing pressure, real pressure in the market. 2, low domestic production is based in basic food and manufacturing of substitute for basic input consumables. 3, increased injection of Liberian dollars in the economy as a result of fiscal and monetary operations. The Minister of Finance will attest to that. 4, low supply of foreign exchange due to low export earning and capital inflows. And 5, speculative factors driven by market perception about the future value of the Liberian dollar, thereby leading to a self-fulfilling prophecy. Monetary developments. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, monetary policy implementation has continued to be constrained in the achievement of a core mandate of price stability by the Central Bank of Liberia. This mandate is dedicated by the fact that inflation has implication for eroding the purchasing power of households, reducing the revenue base of the country, as well as inhibiting investment inflow, and undermining the competitiveness of the economy. Inflationary and exchange rate pressures do not seem to dissipate. However, CBL continues to muster efforts through devised monetary policy instruments, which we'll be discussing during the dialogue, for containing the rising inflationary trend and reverting the situation in the medium term. These efforts will come at significant monetary cost to the Central Bank of Liberia, or cost to the government. But the benefit of ensuring a stable macroeconomic environment far exceed the cost we are talking about. Due to the unabated inflationary and exchange pressure since 2015, the CBL is in the process of shifting its monetary policy framework from intermediate exchange rate targeting to the use of monetary policy rate as the key policy instrument of the bank. Before now, our monetary policy involved the use of several monetary instruments, including the reserve requirement and foreign exchange auction. Let me draw your attention to the fact that the transmission mechanism of interest rate in the economy has been relatively ineffective, as the interest rate spread between the lending and the saving rates remain wide in the absence of effective monetary policy rate. These phenomena have induced the CBL to contemplate the introduction of a proxy monetary policy rate, the standing deposit facility, and the central bank notes to be issued at high interest rate to attract liquidity into the banking sector. At the moment, currency outside the banks, outside the sector as a whole, accounts for 86%. At one time, we reported 90%. It's down to 86%, which is not healthy to promote vibrant financial intermediation and monetary stability. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are all aware, a safe, sound, and stable financial system is critical to macroeconomic stability and sustainable economic growth. This remains a major objective of the bank, despite the challenging macroeconomic environment. The banking industry remains relatively resilient, reflective of profitability, liquidity, and capital. However, the high level of non-performing loans above the tolerable limit of 10% remain a constraint on the operation of the banking industry, meaning that loans are not performing like how they're supposed to. You borrow money, you have the responsibility to pay. And a lot of people, powerful people in our society, are shunning their own responsibility to pay. I said a lot because some are honorable and they are meeting up with their responsibility. The non-performing loans is a serious matter, not only in Liberia. I talk with my colleagues all through West Africa. They have the same problems. I ask them, what you doing about the problems? Call the banks in. Talk to them. Let them call their clients in. Let them talk to them. See how they can make payment. You don't just sit and wait, especially loans that are guaranteed by government bonds. You don't just sit and wait for the bonds to mature and you collect. take the initiative yourself and go out there, dialogue with those who credit from you, and make sure that they pay. Monetary policy has also been leveraging on other financial instruments to manage liquidity as a way of increasing the fiscal space for short-term cash needs of the government. The Treasury bills have been operational with total issuance of 843 million Liberian dollars from January 2018 to the end of June 2019. At an average yield of 4.38% per annum of 91 days, as a means of attracting retail investor into the money market, the Central Bank of Liberia introduced its debt instrument called the CBL bills, indexed against the exchange rate at a nominal rate of 7.0% per annum. The major challenge associated with operationalizing these instruments is the high rate of inflation vis-a-vis the yield on the instruments. In order to address these challenges, the bank is considering increasing the SDF rate from 4% to 24.5%. I repeat that. The bank is considering, meaning that we haven't taken the decision yet. Our major concern is the cost of about $9 million required to finance the operation of this rate in 1 year. Let me reaffirm that the bank remains supportive to the government's proposed policy, especially the pillar emphasizing financial inclusion. At the moment, access to financial services is estimated at 36%, significantly driven by mobile money. And we extend at this time thanks and appreciation to few of the banks, GT Banks, LBDI, and IB Bank, Echo Bank. Out of the 9 banks, they are doing well with financial inclusion and mobile money. The bank is at an advantage stage in the finalization of important regulation, including rural finance services, mobile money, consumer protection, microfinance institutions, and payment system. All these policy initiatives are expected to deepen financial inclusion for the realization of stable financial environment and improve welfare. Low financial access and services have continued to impose constraint on the implementation of monetary policy. Hence, the need for greater effort to deepen the financial system, something the CBN prioritized as applied. Articulated in the financial sector development implementation program, which was launched in 2014 with support from the World Bank. The CBL, in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning, recently developed a detailed roadmap for the digitalization of the Liberian economy. The roadmap is intended for the Liberian people to serve them from the present stage to a more efficient, transparent, and productive system. The digitalization initiative will also promote financial inclusion, minimize fraud, reduce delay in payments, and deepen financial activities. As part of the roadmap implementation, the bank continues to engage the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning and the Liberian Revenue Authority for the automation of all government of Liberia revenue collection and distribution. Mention all Liberian government revenue and distribution. The Act of the Central Bank of Liberia states that all government finances should be lodged with the bank. It's government money. It's not the central bank money. We don't spend government money. It's lodged and is drawn upon when needed by the government. This integration will ensure the timely and senseless automation of payments of civil servant salary, pension benefits, vendor payments, and payments to other government ministry and agency. At the same time, provide secure and efficient collection of revenue. The CBA is in readiness to implement, in collaboration with the West African Monetary Institute and the Afrin Bank, the regional project for the integration of technological payment system and the definition of a common framework for transacting, clearing, settlement across border, transaction in domestic currency. The project is expected to enhance trade in the sub-region and to mitigate corresponding banking relationships. In conclusion, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please allow me to briefly outline some of the key challenges impacting effective monetary policy implementation. Dual currency regime that limits monetary policy operation at the Central Bank of Liberia. The shallowness of the financial system, as reflected by the lack of functioning financial markets where policy instruments are traded. Excess liquidity outside the mainstream banking system, which is undermining intermediation. Limited foreign services, thus inhibiting the CBI ability to adequately respond to potential external shocks to the economy and help smoothen exchange rate volatility. High input costs push inflation that has adverse implication for real purchasing power. Low credit to the private sector, especially agriculture and manufacturing. High cash-driven economy, which increase the cost of financial transaction and risk. And high non-performing loans, as I mentioned earlier, which undermines the real liquidity position of the bank and the economy in general, which could negatively affect the real economy. What is the CBL doing to mitigate the above challenges? This is the question I'm confronted with all the time. What are you doing? Some say we have no monetary policy. They need to visit the bank to get the understanding that we do have monetary policy. So what is the central bank doing? One, the bank is currently in the process of revising or reviewing its existing act to strengthen its operational and goal independence, including governance. Two, the bank has developed a new monetary policy framework and charter to guide the operationalization of the Monetary Policy Committee, MPC. This institutional structure will serve as a platform for the formulation and implementation of a forward-looking monetary policy and create the necessary condition for effective assessment of macroeconomic conditions. The new monetary policy framework also seeks to give greater attention to the use of Liberian dollar as the currency of choice as part of the already dollarization strategy. And the Ministry of Commerce and Industry is doing a lot of work in that area. The bank, in collaboration with its development partner, is developing forecasting policy analysis system, FPAS. This system is important to note that it results predictable and forward-looking monetary policy are guided by a central forecasting system that help quantify economic outlook. The CBI is also strengthening its data warehouse to enhance the conduct of empirical analysis and provide evidence-based policy advice. You should take note that the bank is also advisor to the government. The CBI is collaborating with other government institutions and a development partner to ensure strengthening and full implementation of the de-dollarization roadmap. The CBI working with its partner, fiscal authority, the banking sector, and other key sectors to ease the liquidity pressure using a mix of monetary market instruments. Like I mentioned, the standing deposit facility, the CBI bills, CBI auctions, and reserve requirement ratio, among others, through the development of appropriate interest rate corridor. The CBI remains committed in the implementation of policies that will support the building of foreign exchange reserve to serve as buffer for the economy. The CBI continues to work to restore public confidence in the financial system and to attract money into the banking sector. This requires continuing engagement with all stakeholders in the financial sector. The CBI is working toward full digitization of the financial sector. We at the CBI are also working towards deepening credit intervention programs in the microfinance and agriculture sector. To promote a cash-led economy, the CBI is working towards increasing financial education to take banking services to the public. A lot of services being offered. The people are not aware of it. If you're not aware of something, you can't take advantage of it. We have to go out there, the bank, central bank, commercial bank, the fiscal authority, and let the people know what's available to them to enable them to take advantage. CBI is holding discussion with development partners and other stakeholders about promulgating regulation indicating that all transactions above a given limit, with the exception of goods traded over the counter, which can be settled in cash, should be paid through the bank transfer and not by checks or cash, to encourage individuals to open accounts and manage them. This would be more useful if, among other things, the mobile money services such as those provided by MTN and Orange Money can be linked to bank accounts. The CBI is promulgating interconnection of banks and other financial institutions via a common switch where, for instance, an ATM card for one bank can be used across all banks at the affordable price. At a just concluded statutory meeting of the West African Monetary Zone in Conakry, Guinea, the CBI held a SAR meeting of the Central Bank of Nigeria with the aim of knowing and sharing knowledge on some of these initiatives and to promote interregional trade. No, I have to take my time because the whole yeah. If you be quiet, please. If you look at the program itself, you will see everything fringing on monetary arrangement, monetary policy. Yeah, so I beg you, a few minutes. As I indicated, the statutory meeting of the West African Monetary Zone in Conakry, Guinea, we held a side meeting with the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria and his team with the aim and knowledge of sharing on some of these initiatives and to promote intra-regional trade through the direct exchange of Liberian dollar for Naira vis-a-vis. Now, what we mean by this? Exchange of Liberian dollar for Naira. We have a situation in the country. You're aware of it. Those who trade in the markets, they accumulate Liberian dollars. They have to import. What they import, 80 to 90% we don't produce. So they go within the microeconomy to mop up US dollar for importation. We want to stop that. We want a US dollar to stay in Liberia for investment opportunities with the banks and the government. And to get it to stay, we want to launch. And we're working on a package, certain amount of Liberian dollar with the Central Bank of Nigeria. And if possible, the Central Bank of China, Central Bank of South Africa, as we go along. And they will launch their currency, the Naira, the renminbi, with us. Liberians accumulating the Liberian dollar, but now have to come within the microeconomy to get US dollar. They bring the US dollar they receive and come to the central bank. If they go into Nigeria, we give them Naira at the rate that exists at that time. If they go into South Africa, we give them the renminbi, the rands. If they go into China, we give them their money. Wherever they go. Before I close, close it again. Before I close, let me extend my thanks and appreciation to all of our partners, the International Monetary Fund, World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, UC, UNDP, UNFPA, the diplomatic mission accredited near Monrovia, ECOWAS, AU, Minor River Union for the technical and financial support to the work of the bank. We are also grateful to the various ministries and agencies of government that are working with us as partners, financial institutions, and the Liberian people for their cooperation. Thank you for your attention. Yes. I will give you a copy because we want you to publish it as is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Governor Petrie. We'll also have an overview of the fiscal situation in Liberia, and we now invite the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, Honorable Samuel D. Tua Jr.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Dr. George Manawiya, President of the Republic of Liberia, Mr. Speaker, members of the Honorable House of Representatives, Mr. Pro Tempore, members of the House of Senate, Mr. Rez Rep of the UNDP, and our other distinguished development partners, our international guests and experts, academics, private sector reps, bishop and clergy, political leaders here, youth groups, market groups, media, panelists, the governing national stakeholders of the Republic of Liberia here present. Let me begin by extending profound thanks and appreciation to His Excellency, Dr. George Manuel Weah, President of the Republic of Liberia, for convening this 3-day national dialogue. Mr. President, it is a remarkable show of leadership to always bring all our people together around the difficult issues that confront us. Across this room, we see a broad swath of Liberians from disparate backgrounds and professional hues. I thank you for convening, Mr. President. Special thanks also goes to our development partners, the United Nations Development Fund, USAID, ECOWAS, the European Union, CEDA, and other partners for supporting the dialogue. We thank Dr. Tukba McIntosh-Gawier and the organizing secretariat for making this happen. Big thanks to our international visiting guests who have traveled from afar to mediate this dialogue. Distinguished among them are Honorable Seth Takwe, former Finance Minister of the Republic of Ghana, and Mr. Tony Elumelu, who's on his way, is not here yet, but they're distinguished and they'll be arriving. Please let's give them a round of applause. The dialogue convened Liberians from various backgrounds to reflect on the difficult economic context we face today, but also on the immense opportunities for transformation. This dialogue is not merely about intellectual display of ideas. More than anything, the path of Liberia's transformation is well framed in the proper agenda for prosperity and development. This dialogue is about thinking ideas and framing them into action, generating new ideas and new strategies and aligning them with existing plans. This dialogue is about driving a national inclusion, ownership, mastery, and appreciation of the difficult challenges we face, but more importantly, of the opportunities for change inherent in those challenges if all stakeholders, the government, citizens, the private sector, civil society, non-government organizations and institutions, our development partners, our religious organizations, among others, work concertedly together to place Liberia on the path of national economic transformation. The forging of that momentum and the driving of this national consensus of shared risk and shared ownership can take shape during this dialogue. We opened this dialogue amid challenges to our macroeconomy and to our private sector. Exchange rate instability and its pass-through impact on inflation have reduced the income of our vulnerable poor, particularly those living in rural areas. This instability has been primarily caused by the loss of significant amounts of United States dollars from the Liberian economy over the past several years. The inflows of United States dollars that have supported our exchange rate in the past did not happen because of fundamental domestically driven economic variables. These US dollar inflows were not primarily based on exports from our agriculture and manufacturing sectors, but largely on the presence of UN foreign troops, external assistance, and overseas remittance. To the extent that those US inflows were derived from exports, they were exports from iron ore and rubber, whose prices are highly volatile and whose extraction takes place with no value addition. Today, this period of surplus inflows of United States dollars is over, exposing our economy to shocks and compelling the government and its international partners, such as the International Monetary Fund, to work toward a macroeconomic framework, like in weather shocks affecting an import-oriented, undiversified economy such as ours, where nearly everything we eat is imported and where we have to spend our scarce United States dollars for this import. Under this new macroeconomic framework, our fiscal policy is expected to be contractionary to better manage our deficit, which also has an impact on inflation, especially in a dual currency regime. Our fiscal policies under this new macroeconomic framework will be anchored on minimizing the deficit, on controlling our wage bill, which is disproportionately high in the West African region, on increasing the effectiveness and efficiency of priority proper development spending, on ensuring greater transparency in fiscal data and on stronger governance in the fight against corruption. Many of these aims were announced by President Weah when he immediately took office in 2018. The President ordered the reduction in salary of public officials and mandated that salaries in the public sector had to be anchored to the compensation of government ministers, cascading downward to deputy and assistant ministers. The President also mandated rationalization of public spending and cuts to unnecessary spending. This original pro-pope salary cut saved around $8.7 million US, and the rationalization led to a recast of the 2017-18 national budget, which slashed the expected deficit that would have happened without that recast. The preceding 2018-19 national budget faced significant challenges in the last quarter, underscoring the need to increase domestic revenue as the principal means of financing the budget. The shocks to the budget were not because domestic revenue was not performing. Evidence shows that domestic revenue levels in the last year budget have exceeded levels as far back as 3 to 4 years ago. The shock came from the decline. The shock came from the decline in external assistance, which has been a major part of our revenue story over the last 10 years or more, and from the fact that the public spending has not adjusted or cannot easily adjust downward to these declines in external assistance. One key focus of this dialogue is how do we increase domestic revenue from its last 6-year average of $453 million to an average ranging from $500 to $530 million in the next several years ahead. In the new 2019-2020 budget now under consideration, the government aims to moving towards this path in higher domestic revenue mobilization through a combination of tax policy measures, measures that broaden the tax base, administrative efficiency, use of technology, minimizing exemptions and using tax incentives more reasonably, and stronger financial support for revenue mobilization. So the 2019-2020 national budget now under consideration is not just about downward adjustment. Going forward, the government aims to increase its effort to collect taxes, backed by strong political will shown by the President to collect a fair share of revenue due to the government. All stakeholders and citizens are challenged to participate in this endeavor. People with knowledge of persons and cartels that may be colluding and defrauding the state of revenue should come forward and declare so now. This is what this dialogue is also about. The reality is that strong revenue performance is a function of continued growth in the economy, improvements in the business climate, increased flows of investment, etc. The President has established a business climate working group that has engaged a wide range of stakeholders to address challenges and costs of doing business in Liberia. The working group has engaged stakeholders, for example, in the shipping industry, with the aim of bringing down the cost of imports, which have also had pass-through impacts on prices. So all of the high cost we see is not just because of the exchange rate. There are other factors as well. Evidence shows that import costs can come down if the government, the National Port Authority, shipping lines, and other stakeholders remain on their current path of bringing prices and costs down and improving efficiency in that sector. The cost and reliability of electricity is also a challenge to the business environment. Per kilowatt hour cost of power in Liberia is 35 US cents, while for most countries in West Africa it is less than 15 US cents. The completion of CLSG transmission lines early next year will enable Liberia to import cheaper power from neighboring countries, helping to improve the business climate. Contract enforcement and the litigation of business cases in Liberian courts remains areas of concern. The Business Climate Group is working closely with the Chief Justice and leaders of the judiciary, as well as key private sector groups such as banks, which are often affected in these types of cases, to sit with contract enforcement on a more transformative path. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, job creation is a big theme for this dialogue. The country cannot absorb the number of young people entering the job market yearly, and this is a serious recipe for crisis and tension. In this regard, the government and its partners and all stakeholders are challenged to open new frontiers for the employment of our young people. A major area in this field is the field of agriculture, where business climate challenges such as high cost of electricity need not apply. The President and the government view the agriculture space as the clearest path to short to medium-term job creation. The benefits here are too great and we would like to see some consensus developed around agriculture investments during this dialogue. To our bankers in the room, you are sitting on immense vault cash that is not making its way to the agriculture sector to improve value chain in domestic food production, for example. So the question is, why is money not going in the sector when it is clear that the returns on investment can be large? The answer is, of course, the risks are high. We need to have serious conversation on de-risking bank lending to agriculture. There is absolutely no way we transform agriculture if banks do not seriously participate. To begin this transformation, the President mandated that we include in this current budget $2 million in the budget as an agriculture guarantee fund. We intend to increase this amount every year. This money is to back more flexible lending terms to the agriculture sector. Firms in agriculture production need very, very flexible terms, such as maybe 1 year to 2 year grace period and longer maturities. The government is ready to put its money where its mouth is by using public resources to relax constraints in key sectors such as agriculture. We encourage our development partners to adopt this approach, and the government is engaging with major partners on support for de-risking in this way. In the next 3 years, we're challenged to put Liberia on a sustainable path of food security and job creation using agriculture as a conduit. And so over the next 3 days, I trust we will be fully vested in finding paths to transformation, on thinking big, on blaming less, and working together more. There is no economic progress in life. I'll read that again. And so over the next 3 days, I trust we will be fully vested in finding paths to transformation, on thinking big, on blaming less, and working together more. There is no economic progress for Liberia if Liberia remains an undiversified economy, still dependent on the sale of iron ore and rubber with no value added, and on the raw export of gold and diamond and timber, whose revenues we hardly even see. That model has failed. Looking for strategies within that failed model will also fail. Taking big steps to move the whole governance and business process around creating opportunities for value addition and for diversify our economy is the focus of this government and must be the substance of conversations over the next 3 days. Let us identify low-hanging fruits, small areas of risk-taking and collaboration across spaces of government, development partners, private sector. Let us ask why Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are doing better in cocoa production than Liberia is doing. Cocoa exports have precipitously fallen in Liberia over the past several years. Something is wrong with Liberian agriculture. Let us look at the shortest routes to digitizing our economy and accelerating the move towards less use of cash. Let this dialogue tease out some of these missing links and forge a consensus around them. Let an entrepreneur here say if the government can increase its agriculture guarantee to 4 million, our bank group will provide flexible 10 million financing for agriculture before the end of this year. The government is working with investors to pour resources in the sector and is prepared to give these agriculture investors very generous incentives if they provide jobs for young people and grow the food we eat. As a government, we're committed to situating this country on a path to change. We're tackling difficult challenges and enjoying on all stakeholders the need to support these moves. We're tackling the beast of bloated wage through a harmonization policy that pays all government workers equitably. This is a difficult problem we have not been able to solve in the past. We must solve it now and avoid major shocks and disaster in the future. We remain committed to improving governance and fighting corruption. We remain committed to strengthening the rule of law. All stakeholders must equally commit. All Liberians must commit to maintaining their peace and to avoiding disrupting governance, which is not good for investment or long-term growth. I believe unity, a stronger sense of shared ownership of challenges and opportunities for prosperity can issue from this dialogue with robust follow-up actions and enhanced coordination among different stakeholders. I wish all success in these deliberations and the actions that will derive from them. I thank you.
Thank you so kindly, Minister Toy. With that overview of the fiscal situation, we've come to the end of the opening session, and I will now invite the Executive Mansion Protocol to coordinate the photo shoot.
When I have photo shoot with the press, okay. The first one will be done with the platform guests. Hello. No, hello. Naomi. Yeah. Trust the flag. Mama, go for the flag. Yeah. That one, no. Is the person? Yeah, then we'll get it back. No, we have the diplomatic code. At the first Sunday there for your way. Garrison, move right there first. Why everybody get it? No, we're joining. Okay, our guests from our sister countries will join. Mr. President, the guests from our sister country. The other way. Partners after that. We will now ask members of the diplomatic corps and our partners to please join. Down. All of our photographers, journalists, yeah, please fall down a bit. Yeah, no, catch it. Yeah, I believe. We ask that a female
I want to go in the bathroom. Yeah. I can also too.
Okay. Thank you. We ask our political leaders to please come forward. Another set of picture. The former vice president, members of the legislature, political actors. Okay, the picture. Yeah, the partners can come now. There's the last set of pictures. Political leaders, members of the legislature, no minister. Who just got the minister here? Partners. The partners can leave, please. Political leaders right now. The former president. Go for the former vice president, my brother. Okay. The former vice. Can one protocol please bring the former vice president?
They are not here.
You're taking pictures already?
Former vice president is coming there.
How we do that? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This is the end of the photo section. This is the end of the photo section.
The MC will now, or you can now.
Yeah, they're leaving, yes. What time? They have to leave for lunch, right? And the person leave, Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I ask that we all rise as the president will retire.
For information, education, and entertainment, this is KMTV. We break the news and place it right on your telephone. My name is Alex Devine, and I'm, of course, one of your hosts. KMTV, your best bets. For information, education, and entertainment, this is KMTV. We break the news and place it right on your telephone. My name is Alex Devine, and I'm, of course, one of your hosts. KMTV, your best bets.
With the rising numbers, young people around the world are vital to the transformation of society. Of course, they are direct architects to the very uniqueness we need. But what is the way forward in reducing some of the challenges hindering the involvement of youth and society? Is it health, education, advocacy, and you just name it? Here comes Youth Insight, 1 hour youth dialogue that sets the agenda for young people to be expressive of their views, thoughts, activities, and how they affect the society. Join us every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for Youth Insight, only on KMTV. With me, your host, Zach Totiama Sherman.